Welcome to the Deep Dive podcast channel. Have you ever caught yourself, waiting for that thumbs up from someone else before you can finally just exhale?
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you're constantly chasing that next achievement, thinking that's the thing. That's when you'll feel really secure.
Absolutely. That's a really common feeling.
Well, today we're going to try and untangle that need for outside approval. We want to explore how you can cultivate a solid sense of okayness, but from the inside out.
Yeah, we're diving into what we call internal versus external safety.
Exactly. It's such a fundamental human thing, isn't it? This quest for feeling safe.
It really is. And often, without even realizing it, we've learned to look for that safety, that reassurance in external places.
Like what others think.
Yeah, exactly. Or in what we achieve, or how the world seems to see us. The big challenge there, of course, is that those external things, they're not always reliable, are they?
Not at all.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to really understand why leaning so heavily on that external validation can leave us feeling, perpetually a little bit empty.
And importantly, how building that inner sense of safety can lead to a much more resilient, more authentic experience of yourself.
We'll touch on how our past experiences can shape this and definitely explore some really practical ways you can start nurturing that inner security.
Mm-hmm.
And hey, if this topic is resonating with you already and you're curious to explore more like this, we'd love it if you'd subscribe so you don't miss future deep dives.
Yeah, and please share your thoughts in the comments too. We genuinely love to hear what feeling safe means to you personally.
Definitely. So it's about this shift then, from relying on the outside world.
To really trusting your own ability, your own capacity to navigate life, the ups and the downs.
Okay, so let's get really clear. Can you break down the difference for us? Internal versus external safety.
Sure. Think of external safety as feeling all right, feeling okay, based primarily on what's happening out there.
Okay.
So it's needing that constant nod of approval, maybe valuing validation from, say, authority figures more than your own judgment.
Right.
Or tying your worth to achievements or looks, or always needing someone else to say, hey, it's going to be okay. The inherent problem, like we said, is these factors are always changing. They're outside of our direct control, really.
Which leaves us feeling pretty vulnerable, doesn't it? Like you're always sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Precisely. It's an unstable foundation.
So what does internal safety feel like then? What's the alternative?
Internal safety. Well, it's that quiet knowing deep down that you can handle things, whatever comes up, regardless of the external circumstances.
Okay.
It's a trust in your own ability to care for yourself, to soothe yourself when things are tough, to make decisions that actually feel right for you.
That sounds like resilience.
It is. It's a deep-seated resilience that isn't totally shaken by criticism or setbacks. It's the difference between needing everything around you to be perfect just so you can feel okay.
Right.
And knowing you have this inner steadiness, this anchor that can weather the storms.
Wow, that sounds incredibly empowering. But, for so many of us, that reliance on external validation, it feels like it's just woven into our fabric. Where does that actually come from?
Yeah, that's a great question. Often it stems from our early experiences, our upbringing.
Like childhood stuff.
Exactly. Think about growing up in an environment where maybe your feelings were consistently dismissed or minimized, ignored even. You learn pretty quickly usually that your internal experience isn't reliable, or maybe it's not welcome. So you start looking outward to figure out how you're supposed to feel or how to act to be accepted.
Gosh, that feeling of your inner world just not being acknowledged, that must create such a deep sense of insecurity.
It really can. Or consider conditional love, where affection and approval were sort of dependent on you meeting certain expectations.
Being the good kid. Or getting good grades.
Precisely. Or being quiet or helpful. It teaches you that your worth isn't inherent. It's something you have to constantly earn, constantly prove. And so we develop these performance identities. We learn to be loved or at least accepted by being useful or impressive, or maybe even by being invisible and not causing trouble.
Wow.
But it's so vital to remember these are survival adaptations. They were brilliant strategies we developed to navigate really challenging early environments. They weren't character flaws, they were solutions at the time.
That's a really important reframe.
Yeah.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper into how our bodies actually respond to all this.
Yeah.
How does our nervous system play into this dynamic, this internal versus external safety thing?
Right. So our nervous system is basically, constantly scanning our environment internally and externally for signals of safety or danger. It's doing this all the time beneath our conscious awareness.
Okay.
When we've experienced early adversity or maybe ongoing invalidation later in life, that system can become hypersensitized. It's like the alarm system is set too high. It's always on high alert.
So even seemingly small things can feel like a major threat.
Exactly. It can manifest as hypervigilance. That's like being in a persistent state of scanning for potential problems, always anticipating the worst.
Which leads to things like overthinking.
Yes, overthinking, overpreparing, maybe excessively explaining yourself or apologizing constantly, even when it's not needed.
I recognize some of that.
Another really common response, particularly when fight or flight doesn't feel safe or possible, is what we call fawning.
Fawning? What's that?
It's essentially trying to appease others, saying yes when you mean no, avoiding conflict at all costs, trying to anticipate others' needs to keep them happy, all in an attempt to stay safe.
People-pleasing, but on a deeper level.
Kind of, but it's often rooted more deeply in a trauma response, a survival mechanism to maintain connection and avoid perceived danger, like abandonment or anger from others. Paradoxically, it often leaves you feeling less safe and more dependent on that external approval.
So it sounds like when we lack that solid internal anchor of safety, our nervous system is constantly looking outside for cues, for regulation.
Precisely. And polyvagal theory helps explain this too, how our vagus nerve influences whether we feel safe and connected, anxious and mobilized, or shut down. Without strong internal safety cues, we become overly reliant on external co-regulation.
Which means we need someone else to make us feel okay.
Yes. And when we're constantly seeking that external validation, that external soothing, we can inadvertently lose touch with our own internal compass, our own needs, our own desires, our own yes and no.
Which can lead straight into self-abandonment. Is that the term?
Exactly. Self-abandonment becomes this almost invisible, automatic way of operating for many people.
How does that show up, like in everyday life?
Oh, in lots of ways. Consistently prioritizing others' needs way above your own, silencing your opinions or feelings to avoid rocking the boat, downplaying your dreams because they feel unrealistic or you worry what others will think, or even staying in situations, jobs, relationships that feel fundamentally wrong or unloving simply because the familiarity feels safer than the unknown.
Right. The devil you know.
The cost is huge, though. We literally forget how to be with ourselves, how to listen to that inner voice. So reclaiming internal safety really means making a conscious choice. I'm no longer outsourcing my worth, my okayness, my well-being.
Okay, that's powerful. So having seen how easily we can disconnect from ourselves, let's absolutely turn to how we can actively rebuild that connection. How do we cultivate safety from within?
This is where the practical stuff comes in. And one of the most powerful places to start is actually with the body, using somatic grounding techniques.
Somatic, meaning body-based.
Exactly. Because often before we can even think clearly or process things emotionally, we need to help our nervous system settle down to feel safe in the present moment.
Okay, so give us some examples. What does that actually look like?
Really simple things can be surprisingly effective, like the 5-4-3-2-1 exercise. You mindfully notice 5 things you can see right now.
Okay.
Then 4 things you can physically touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It just pulls your attention right into the present sensory experience.
Anchoring you in the here and now.
Precisely. Another one is barefoot grounding. Just spending a few minutes, if possible, with your bare feet on the earth, grass, soil, sand. Really feel the sensations, the texture, the temperature, the feeling of gravity holding you. Take some deep breaths. It's incredibly regulating for the nervous system.
That sounds lovely, actually.
And then there's something called havening touch. It's a very simple, self-soothing technique. You gently stroke your arms from the shoulders down to the elbows repeatedly. Or you can gently rub your palms together or stroke your face. This specific type of touch has actually been shown to have a direct calming effect on the amygdala.
The brain's threat center.
That's the one. So these aren't just nice ideas. They're ways to neurobiologically signal safety to your system.
Wow, okay. Those sound like really accessible tools you can use in the moment. What about things we can do more consistently, like a practice?
Yes, cultivating self-attunement is absolutely key. This is the practice of regularly, intentionally checking in with yourself.
How do you do that?
Just pausing a few times a day, ask yourself, what am I actually feeling in my body right now? Noticing sensations, tightness, warmth, emptiness, what emotions are present, naming them without judgment. What do I genuinely need in this moment? Not what you think you should need.
And the key is no judgment.
No judgment, and no immediate pressure to fix anything,
Hmm.
just being present with your internal experience. This consistent attention, it starts to create a new internal map, basically. One where your inner world actually matters, where it's valued.
It's like learning to listen to your own signals again after maybe ignoring them for a long time.
Exactly. And journaling can be an incredibly powerful tool for this internal validation piece.
How so?
Well, instead of immediately texting a friend or seeking external opinions when you feel uncertain or upset, try turning inward first with your journal.
Using prompts.
Yeah, prompts can be great. Things like, what do I wish someone else would say to me right now? And then write that down for yourself. Or, where have I perhaps abandoned myself lately? Or even just, how can I affirm myself today right now? The journal becomes the safe container, a space where your own thoughts, your feelings, your needs are acknowledged and validated first and foremost by you. What's amazing is how consistently offering yourself this validation on paper starts to internalize. It becomes more of an inner reality.
That makes so much sense. It's like practicing that internal validation muscle. What about addressing some of those earlier experiences we talked about?
Yeah.
The ones that might have chipped away at our internal safety.
Right. That's crucial too. And that's where the concept of rebuilding the inner caregiver comes in. Or sometimes it's called reparenting yourself.
Okay, tell me more about that.
It involves imagining the nurturing, understanding, validating caregiver you might have needed, maybe as a child, or even need now, and then consciously starting to embody that role for yourself.
How would you do that practically?
It could be as simple as placing a hand over your heart when you're feeling distressed and offering yourself words of comfort, like, it's okay, I'm here with you, this is hard, but we'll get through it. You could try writing letters from your wiser, more compassionate self to a younger part of you that might be hurting or scared. Creating small, personal rituals of self-care done with the specific intention of nurturing yourself.
That it's more than just bubble baths.
Much more. The underlying message you're sending yourself over and over is, I've got you. You're not alone anymore. I am here with you.
It really is like actively parenting ourselves in the way we need it.
Precisely. And as we cultivate this stronger inner sense of safety and self-connection, something else starts to happen. We get better at distinguishing between fear-based reactions and genuine intuition.
Oh, that's a big one. How to tell the difference?
It takes practice, definitely.
Yeah.
But you can start asking yourself questions. When a strong feeling comes up, ask, is this driven primarily by a fear, like fear of rejection, fear of failure? Or does it feel more like a quiet, clear knowing, a desire for genuine connection or alignment? You can also check in with your body. Does the feeling associated with this choice or situation feel expansive and open? Or does it feel tense, constricted, urgent? Fear often feels like a reaction, like a contraction. Intuition tends to feel more like a calm guidance, an inner alignment.
So fear protects, intuition guides. Is that a fair way to put it?
That's a great way to think about it. Fear is often loud, urgent, rooted in past hurts. Intuition is usually quieter, steadier, focused on the present and future alignment. Discernment grows over time with more self-awareness.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
And finally, what about our internal dialogue? You know, the way we actually talk to ourselves in our heads. How does that impact this whole internal safety thing?
Oh, profoundly. Our self-talk has a direct effect on our nervous system state.
Really?
Absolutely. Harsh, critical, demanding self-talk, that activates a sense of threat. It keeps the nervous system on edge.
Makes sense.
Whereas shifting to a more gentle, compassionate, encouraging inner voice can literally create a physiological sense of safety. It's like applying an internal soothing balm.
Can you give some examples of shifting that self-talk?
Sure. Notice those shoulds and musts and have tos. Try reframing them. Instead of, I have to get this done perfectly, maybe try, I choose to work on this and I'll do my best.
Okay.
When you make a mistake, instead of, I'm such an idiot, try something like, okay, that didn't go as planned. What can I learn? It's okay to make mistakes. Or shifting, I can't handle this, to, this feels really hard right now and I'm still here. I can take it step by step.
It's about treating yourself like something you care about.
Exactly. You are a person deserving of care and understanding, especially from yourself, not just a project to be constantly fixed or criticized.
Wow. It really sounds like building internal safety is this incredible journey of reconnecting with ourselves on such a deep level.
It absolutely is. And it's crucial to emphasize it is a gradual process. It's not an overnight fix or a destination you suddenly arrive at.
Right. It's a practice.
It's a practice of recognizing your inherent worth, The worth that's there regardless of external validation. And it's definitely not about becoming isolated or rejecting connection. Healthy connections are vital for us.
So it's not about pushing people away.
Not at all. It's about building that solid foundation within yourself first so that your relationships can come from a place of wholeness rather than a desperate need for completion or validation. It's a shift from panic to presence, from desperation to discernment.
From external dependence to embodied truth.
Beautifully put, yes. Ultimately, it's about learning that you are allowed to rest, truly rest, and feel at home within yourself.
This has been so insightful. Thank you. Now, maybe we could touch on some common questions people have when they start exploring this.
Yeah, definitely. Let's do that.
Okay, one I hear a lot is, why is it so hard for me to calm down unless someone else tells me it's okay?
Right. And as we touched upon, that often has deep roots in early attachment experiences. If we learned early on that our safety and soothing primarily came from external figures, that co-regulation, then our nervous system gets wired to seek that externally. It takes practice to build the internal capacity.
Okay, that makes sense. Another one, can building internal safety mean I just stop needing any external validation at all?
That's a good question. And the answer is probably not entirely, nor should it. We're social beings. Positive feedback and connection feel good, they're important. But the difference is dependence. With strong internal safety, external validation becomes nice to have, not need to have for your fundamental sense of worth and okayness. You become more resilient to criticism, too.
That's a really important distinction. What about the difference between self-attunement, which you mentioned, and just regular self-care?
Another great one. Think of self-attunement as the listening part. It's the pausing, the checking in, the noticing what sensations, emotions, needs are present right now. Self-care is often the action part that follows. It's choosing the bath, the walk, the boundary, based on what your self-attunement revealed you needed. Attunement informs the care.
Got it. Listening, then acting. Okay, and is fawning that appeasing response? Is that exactly the same as just being a people pleaser?
There's definitely overlap, but they aren't identical. Fawning, as we discussed, is typically understood as a more deeply ingrained trauma response. It's often subconscious, driven by a primal need to appease a perceived threat to feel safe. People-pleasing can sometimes be more of a learned behavioral pattern, maybe driven by a desire to be liked or avoid discomfort, but the underlying fear or survival drive might be less intense than in fawning. Though people-pleasing can certainly have roots in insecurity, too.
Okay, that clarifies things. And the big question many listeners might be wondering, how long does it actually take to build this internal sense of safety?
Ah, the timeline question. Realistically, it's a lifelong journey. It's about building and tending to your relationship with yourself continually. There's no finish line. But the good news is, every single moment you intentionally choose to connect with yourself, to ground yourself, to offer yourself kindness, that is progress. It builds over time. Patience and self-compassion are key.
Be kind to yourself on the journey. Love that. One last one. What if someone tries some of these grounding practices or tries to attune, and instead of feeling safe, they just feel numb or empty?
Yeah, numbness can definitely happen. It's often a protective response itself, a form of shutdown when things feel too overwhelming. If you experience numbness, it's usually a sign to approach yourself with even more gentleness. Start smaller. Maybe just noticing the contact of your feet on the floor for a few seconds. Don't force it. And if numbness is persistent, it can be really helpful to seek support from a therapist who is experienced in working with trauma and the nervous system.
That's really important advice. Thank you for clarifying all those points. So just to bring it all together, what are the absolute key things you hope listeners take away from our conversation today?
I think the core message is this. While external validation might feel good momentarily, it's ultimately fleeting and unreliable as a source of true security. Lasting safety, genuine okayness, comes from cultivating it within yourself.
Right, that internal anchor.
Exactly. And we've talked about some key strategies. Somatic grounding to connect with your body's wisdom, self-attunement to truly hear your own needs, journaling for self-validation, consciously nurturing that inner caregiver part of you.
Learning to tell fear from intuition and shifting that inner dialogue.
Precisely. And perhaps the most fundamental takeaway is remembering your worth is inherent. It's not conditional. You don't need to perform or achieve or please others perfectly to deserve safety, rest, and care. That feeling of home, it's already inside you, waiting to be rediscovered.
That's such a hopeful message. We really hope this deep dive is giving you, our listeners, some valuable insights and maybe some practical tools for building that internal sense of safety. Remember, it really is a journey, not some instant destination. every single step you take toward understanding and nurturing yourself is so worthwhile.
Absolutely. And we really encourage you to maybe gently explore some of the practices we discussed. Even small, consistent efforts, just a minute of grounding, one compassionate self-statement can start to make a significant difference over time in how you experience yourself and how you navigate the world.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We really enjoy exploring these kinds of topics and look forward to being with you again soon. And maybe just as a final thought to leave you with, consider one area in your life where you tend to look outside yourself for reassurance or validation. What's one tiny step, just one small thing you do this week to start offering that validation or reassurance to yourself from the inside out?